Okay, so good afternoon. I think we're live. I'm not sure. We're going to have some technical issues. If anyone is live or can hear this, let me know. All right, hey, Richard. I cannot, for some reason, see who's on or how many people are on. So I'm just going to do this like normal and hope you're all there. And as long as everybody can hear me, we'll just keep going. There's an issue. I use a company called Restream to broadcast to multiple different Facebook pages and other ones as well. So there's an issue right now. I can't see how many people are live. It says 0. Obviously, that's not the case. So good afternoon, and thanks for joining me. It's I know it was pretty cold outside. I didn't feel it. It was kind of a nice to 15. All right, so good to see Kathy. Thank you. A really nice day. The sun was out. I got out quite a bit. I had one of those days where I started early and got a lot of stuff done early. So good day for me. Decent day for the market. Pretty slow for being the day after inauguration. Pretty slow day from a political standpoint. Reading all the technical aspects of what was passed yesterday, 17 or so different executive orders. Some were undoing things Trump did. It is kind of a different world with Trump not on Twitter and not on social media. The rhetoric has just dropped significantly, and I don't know what will happen going forward, if he'll be allowed back on, what his actions were. His last statement was, I believe I'm not done. He's going to be back or what have you. So we'll see what happens there. All right, you have people texting me as well. Thank you that everybody's coming in. So from a standpoint of things to discuss today, we'll first go over what Biden did yesterday. 17 key things. We'll just go through the list. Nothing is earth-shattering. Everything is very much expected. Requiring masks on federal property. Somebody put out to me this afternoon that he was at Lincoln Memorial last night or something along those lines without his mask, but whatever. Rejoin the World Health Organization. We knew that was going to be a priority of Biden, to get back into a leadership role when it comes to the environment. And he has made that clear since he started running and when Trump dropped out of that. A new COVID office that will report directly to Biden. Extend the foreclosure and eviction moratoriums, freeze student debt. It's interesting, freezing. Now, this is federal. So if you have a loan through a bank, you're not helped here. Freeze monthly payments and interest on federal student loans at least till September 30th. So, what's interesting about student loans, the question is, I have a friend of mine who went back to school and was paying cash. And at this point, you don't know what the government's going to do, whether it's $10,000 or $50,000 or your complete loan debt being knocked out. But that's being discussed. Whether that can ever pass, I have no idea. But it's being discussed. So the question is, do you want to be stuck without having student loan debt if you can possibly have some? If I was anybody, I would say, let's go back to school now. Take out something, get certified in something so you have that. I'm not sure how that'll work. But if you were thinking of going to school or getting more education or furthering your education anyway, my just gut feeling is now would be the time to do that, because I'd like to have some debt to wipe out when we reach that point. So in any event, going back to the list, I lost it. Rejoin the Paris Climate Accords. We knew that was going to happen. Revoke the permit for the Keystone Pipeline. From an investor standpoint, no one really cares. It's not significant anymore. The need for that has dropped off. There's other pipelines going in. It's almost ceremonial at this point to reject that. The 1977 Sixth Commission, this was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. The New York Times wrote an article that was talking a little bit about history in the 1600s and the founding of the country. So Trump turns around and puts this 1776 commission together, which basically puts out this, how great America is and never did anything wrong and saved the world and informed the nation. All this just really over-the-top patriotic stuff with a revisionist view of history. And Biden got rid of that. So not surprising there. Some changes to the census on who could be counted, whether or not legal or illegal immigrants could be counted. Strengthen legal protections for Dreamers. That's part of DACA, the Deferred Action Program. Abolish the Muslim ban. And they happen to be Muslim countries. I never liked it being called a Muslim ban, but that's what Democrats called it for political reasons. and some other things, halt construction of the U.S. border wall. It halts it, doesn't stop it. It halts it to look at the numbers. And it wouldn't be a crazy thing if we went back to that. The wall was never a terrible idea. It became a symbol of anti-immigration, of racism as part of political posturing. But, multiple presidents have talked about the need to secure the wall. And whether that's with more officers on that wall or physical barriers, everybody has been for some of those things. So Trump's rhetoric made it worse than it actually sounded. And, so they're halting it because we don't know if it'll continue down the road. And so that's major. Nothing earth-shattering here. Some bans, some support for workplace protections for LGBT people. Anything that Trump did, a lot of times he did a bunch of things last minute that are still in the process. They froze all those for more review. So nothing earth-shattering. Trump did this when he took office to the previous administration. I know, what did Obama do? I know he signed Lilly Ledbetter pretty quickly. I don't know what else he did on the first day, but Biden worked to undo some of the things Trump did, and nothing is earth-shattering. Nothing is going to drastically change the world. So it is what it is. Marcy, is this for current students? Marcy, we don't know what it is. Or coming grads with loans coming due, we don't know the answer to that. My only issue is if you were planning on going to school and going and getting whatever, this isn't going to pass in the next 2 or 3 months. It'll likely take 6 months to a year to pass. So just talking off the cuff saying, I want to have something there. So if I was planning on going to school anyway, I'd do it now. And I'd have that debt, which if I was going to do now or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, do it now. You have it and it's in place if something were to pass. Don't know for sure, but that would only apply if you were going anyway to school. Now, we don't know what the limitations may be. It may only be for your undergrad. It may not be for a master's. It may not be for something further than that. So we don't know the answer to that. So if you were planning on going to school in the next couple of years, I would do it now. There's no proposal yet we can analyze to know whether you'd be covered or not. So it's just an interesting idea. All right, so let's talk about, what did I put up here for? I don't remember. First of all, the first thing I want to talk about is tolls. And, this toll debate happened in Lamont's first year, and he completely botched it when it came to only on the borders or only trucks or like Rhode Island and all this other stuff. And his political capital when he got in, I think much of what Lamont does is smart. I think he's a smart business person. He understands, he's certainly a moderate. He understands the business climate, and he's a Democrat. But politically, he was left wanting when it came to that bill more than anything else. And there were certainly groups that started and said, hold on a second, we want no tolls and we went crazy and this is terrible. It's just more taxation, destroy the state and all of those things. And I don't buy into any of that. But the problem that we have is Democrats had an overwhelming control of government. And if it was handled correctly, tolls would have passed. Then it didn't politically. Democrats in Republican districts didn't want to bend. But after that whole debate, Democrats picked up more seats in the next election. So the question becomes, does it make sense for this to come up now? Very likely, if it comes up, and it has, a few state representatives from, I believe, Fairfield put forth a rule or a law to start discussion again on tolls. It's not going to come from Lamont. I think he'll back off of it, especially with an election coming up down the road in next year or 2 years. But at the end of the day, the state needs tolls. I have seen no logical argument against tolls so far. The argument for tolls, the cost of transportation is high. The cost of roads is high. It increases. The cost of more electric cars that are not paying gas tax hurts our transportation fund. The numbers we're seeing is our transportation fund, our special transportation fund, will be out of money by 2024. I don't know what's not conservative about paying for infrastructure. Now, we hear all the normal anti-tax arguments. We can't tax anymore. We're costing businesses, all this other stuff. To a certain extent, there's some truth to that. But when COVID hit, we watched people fly out of New York to Connecticut. This idea that people are avoiding Connecticut is simply not true. When they were desperate to get out of New York or the cities, they flocked to Connecticut, and we're seeing it in our property values. Houses going for 20, 30% over value because the demand is so high. So the fact of the matter is this idea that people are fleeing, some are, but many are coming in. Many towns in 2 or 3 years are going to be much better off because the value of their properties just jumped up significantly. Not in the next couple of years before revals, but once revals happen, and adjust with those new numbers, the tax income in those towns will be higher. That said, we are reliant on significantly gas tax to fund our roads. But cars get more and more efficient. One thing Biden will do as president is reinstate the efficiency rules that Obama had put in. Trump got rid of them. So the efficiency rules that had to be in place 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, they're going to be returned because of Biden. So we know that cars are going to be more efficient. They're more efficient now than they were 10 years ago. They'll be more efficient in 5 years, in 10 years, and 15, which means less gas tax. We also know that we have a higher number of electric cars coming. Everybody's making electric cars. Tesla, GM is making it. BMW is coming out with one. Electric cars are coming in like crazy, which means less gas tax. So we have more efficient cars, less gas tax. More electric cars, no gas tax. At the end of the day, we're going to have less gas tax coming in, which helps fund that special transportation fund. In the meantime, the cost of maintaining our roads is increasing. The cost of repairing the major infrastructure spending we need is drastically increasing, and we've put that off significantly. So here's the question that I ask Republicans, conservatives. The big misnomer is that being conservative is not spending money. Being conservative, being smart with money, being prudent with money means spending wisely. Spending on infrastructure is a wise spending. Everybody that runs for office, Democrat, Republican, talks about spending on infrastructure. Everybody that runs for office in Connecticut talks about how badly Connecticut needs improvements on its infrastructure. Why are we waiting? You know, if you talk to anybody in the state, they will tell you at some point we're going to pass a bill on marijuana, right? That's going to happen. Eventually it is. We could have passed a bill on legalizing marijuana 10 years ago. And for moral or ethical or whatever nonsense reason, we are late to do it. Other states are seeing money coming in from marijuana. We're late to do it. We could have passed 5, 6, 7 years ago laws that allowed sports betting. 10 years ago, laws that allowed sports betting. We had the Supreme Court case that clarified that they could. That was a couple years back. But we've delayed that, and we delayed that, and we delayed that. Will it happen? Yes, eventually it will happen. But again, we're late. Again, we're walking away from tens of millions of dollars in revenue on things that are happening anyway. Sports betting is happening. Illegally, but it's happening. Marijuana is smoked all over the place. Edibles all over the place. We decriminalize, but we never pass it so we can actually tax it. You want to pretend it's not happening? You can, but it's bullshit. It's nonsense. And the same thing applies to tolls. Electric cars are coming. The only reason we haven't seen a more significant drop in our gas tax is because more and more people are going from cars to SUVs, which are inherently worse on gas. And one of the reasons they went from cars to SUVs, thank you, Barack Obama, was because the huge influx of fracking that was allowed, it allowed us to become energy independent and the cost of gas to drop. That's what happens when you have too much gas on the market, the cost drops. Saudi Arabia just cut back their production, and you're seeing gas prices per gallon start to creep back up. When that gets to $3 or $3.50, you'll see the demand for SUVs drop and the demand for cars go up. This is Economics 101. And the question I keep coming back to, marijuana, sports betting, tolls, is why are we always the last state to get something done? Supposedly the benefit of having one party rule is you can pass stuff. We have overwhelming Democratic majorities in the Senate, overwhelming Democratic majorities in the House, and a Democratic governor. Democrats can pass whatever they want. But we still don't have marijuana. We still don't have sports betting. And tolls, which should have passed 2 years ago and didn't, should pass now and likely won't, is a major source of revenue we should be looking at. We've looked at all the alternatives. We said trucks only out of state. Can we give discounts to people locally? There's all sorts of things that can go in there. We cannot just put them at the borders. But to have an overwhelming majority of one party, the majority of that party believes we need tolls. And I know many Republicans who after COVID have said, okay, we're going to need something here. Because the damage on our roads and the infrastructure costs still deal with weather if we have less cars on it. Time takes its toll. So just because we had less car traffic during COVID doesn't mean we don't have wear and tear on those roads. Steve just mentioned Scanlon is against legalization of marijuana. He absolutely is. That's absolutely correct. And he is dead wrong on that. And he's been on this podcast, and I've told him he's dead wrong on that. We very, very much disagree on that. Now, how will he vote on it now? I think at some point, even the Democrats were against it. I think some of those might come around and say, listen, it's inevitable. Let's do this anyway. The people who don't want tolls, whether you are a D or an R, well, first of all, nobody wants to spend more money. But when you actually explain why you have to, doesn't it make sense? Let's think about this for a second. We have more efficient cars coming, and with Biden in office, they're going to be mandated again. They were mandated under Obama. Trump rolled back those mandates that car manufacturers have more efficient. Obama had very significant benchmarks. Years out, the cars had to be a certain efficiency. Many of the cars have taken those steps anyway. Then we found out because gas dropped so much, the demand for cars dropped and the demand for SUVs increased. And by the way, go to Starbucks, look at the drive-through. It's 90% SUVs all the time. SUV sales go up as gas prices drop. You don't mind spending a little extra gas because it doesn't cost you anything. The idea that we're overwhelmingly environmentally friendly is nonsense. We'll buy the biggest goddamn trucks on the planet, the biggest SUVs if gas is low. But when that gas starts creeping back up, and you'll see this, to $3, $3.50, $4, you'll see car sales go back up again. Trucks and SUV will start to drop again. This is supply and demand. As cost goes up, it drops. There's an XY axis for this. This is economics. We all learn this. I don't know if we learned it in high school. We've certainly learned it in whatever prereq we had to take for whatever degree we wanted in college. And so those things are happening, on top of which more people are going to electric cars. So the gas tax we pay is going to drop. And when we say drop, the number may go from $1 to $1.10 that we pick up in gas tax. But if their cost of our infrastructure repairs goes from $1.10 to $1.20, we're losing money. The proportion's wrong. The money coming in does not keep up with the cost of inflation, the cost of doing this work, the cost of the unions doing the job, the bridge being repaired. And just because we didn't have traffic on the roads during COVID and we didn't pick up gas tax, doesn't mean we don't have damage to that infrastructure. That's what weather does. You don't have to walk on your roof for 20 years for your roof to go bad. So all the numbers based on basic common sense tell us, do something now to increase the money we have for infrastructure. Period. And we can't pass it. And many, many Democrats understand why we need tolls. Many Republicans know we need tolls. Steve, I don't know how it got to Ford, but Ford stopped making cars. There's no demand. As gas was cheap, there was no demand for cars. The Ford Taurus doesn't exist anymore. I had a Ford Taurus. Everybody when I was growing up had either a Ford Taurus or a Mercury Sable, like they're the exact same car. Don't exist anymore. Now there's still obviously BMWs and Mercedes and Chevrolet's still making cars. So there's demand for cars, but as gas costs dropped, the demand for cars dropped. When it got to $4 a gallon, cars went up. So Ford makes a fortune on their trucks. So they're focusing on their trucks. But this theme is an amazing theme when we think about the overwhelming majority one party has in Connecticut. That how disjointed is that party? How fractioned is that party that they can't get basic things passed? You could be against tolls. Nobody wants to pay more money at a toll. I've gone to New York to a lot of games in Manhattan when we could go to games. You don't even know it's there. You get a thing in the mail for a couple dollars, whatever it is. If you have Easy Pass, it just takes it out. I don't like it. Nobody likes it. But I like being on nice roads. Living here in Branford and seeing that highway in New Haven and that bridge in New Haven, look the way it does, feel it the way. I can get here to West Haven in seconds now when it would take 25 minutes before. There's a massive advantage to this. And our bridges are falling apart. Our infrastructure needs work. But all I see from some of the leaders of the Republicans is, oh my God, they're bringing back tolls and this is awful and this is terrible. No, we got to pay for things. That brings us back to the same argument of how about we cut spending? Okay, here's a new rule. The next person that says we have to cut spending also has to tell us where. We always hear this stuff of we need to run government like a household or run government like a business. Okay, a CEO who has to cut spending also has to look those people in the face on who he's cutting. He has to talk to those departments if they're going to lose their job. He has to lay out a plan. He just can't walk in there one day and say, we're cutting spending, and then suddenly spending is cut. In one of the debates for governor, hold on a second, we're the second highest tax state in the country. We're also one of the top income states in the country. So what are we counting in that number? Are we counting income tax from Greenwich? Okay, that's going to put us pretty high. It's almost the same argument Democrats make, and it's a nonsense argument that we have the highest wealth disparity in the country. Yeah, because if you have somebody making zero, you have somebody making $3 to $35 billion, that's a pretty big disparity. If you have the richest county in the country, or one of them, you're going to have the greatest wealth disparity. It's nonsense. The argument of we're the second highest tax state, yeah, we have Greenwich. So what taxes are we counting? Sales tax? I want to be the highest sales tax state. I want to be the highest state in sales tax. That means we have people who are loaded and are spending money. They're buying yachts. We want that. See, somebody just asked me here, fair enough, where is all our tax dollars going? I want you to ask that question to your Republican leaders that keep talking about cutting. That's it. I see the budget every year. Comes out, it's analyzed. We see it, we go through it. If there was an easy place to save money in the state budget, you don't think Republicans would have a list saying, let's cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? But the last budget, they were talking about borrowing more money. That's what I don't want to do. The Democrat has us on a debt diet. Republicans wanted to borrow instead of taxing more. I don't want to do that. Want to talk about running it like a household? Okay. If you have a sudden bill that comes up, you can work now and put money towards that bill, or you can borrow it and pay it later with a ton of interest. Which one is more prudent? Which one? Are there some things? For example, I hated that Jackson Labs thing. God help us, I hated that first 5 thing that Malloy had. Malloy had a thing where he paid a fortune to, what was it, BlackRock, the financial firm in Fairfield County, to move from one place to another. It was nonsense. It was the biggest pile of crap. It was a thing where, like, if you moved your company in Connecticut, we were going to give you a huge, massive tax cut or tax break and give you a huge incentive. And people were moving from Connecticut to Connecticut, just relocating there. It was nonsense. So yeah, Democrats have done really, really stupid shit. Most people I know did not like those plans. But that was a one-time thing. Excel Center, one-time thing. And here's the deal. Kathy, if you're going to mention them, XL Center or Buses to Nowhere, put the dollar amount next to it. If we're trying to raise $2 billion and the savings you're listing are $21 million, okay, that's nice. We're not talking about, that's like saying your mortgage just doubled, so let's open a lemonade stand. Doesn't work. If we're going to start talking about let's cutting spending, if we're going to talk about cutting departments, cutting staff, or this bumper sticker yelling, give me some numbers. And we've had enough time. This conversation isn't new. It didn't just come up yesterday. I've heard Republicans say this forever. Show me the numbers. I saw Bob Stefanowski in the governor debates 2-3 years ago talk about, he got on stage, literally said this, everyone knows we can save 10% off the budget. Where? He wanted to save 10% off the budget and eliminate the income tax over the next whatever years it was. Democrats said he wanted to eliminate it immediately. He never said that. That's true. It was slowly over time, but he never gave any statistical reason to do it. Would you do that if you were hiring a CEO of your company? Hi, I'd really like this job. You can cut spending. I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to tell you where. I'm not going to tell you what positions wouldn't be here, but you can cut spending. And then the board is like, oh yeah, we want that person. How does that make sense? That argument from Republicans never makes sense. But at the same time, what the Democrats are doing doesn't make sense either. Waiting years to pass things that we all know we're going to pass inevitably anyway. Marijuana should have passed 10 years ago. There was the argument that it's only $30 million a year or $35 million a year in benefits. Okay, so that's $300 million we don't have. Not to mention the fact that we still have police out there having to go after it. It's decriminalized only under a certain amount. Over that, it's still criminal. Yeah, eventually we're going to pass sports betting, but we can't figure it out. We just can't. Other states have figured it out. We can't figure it out. It's only $80 million a year. Yeah, but 5 or 6 years ago, that's $400 million now. We don't do. Republicans yell about cutting spending and give us no evidence that any spending cuts will make sense or they have any actual cuts that they propose. Democrats have things they can pass, have huge majorities to pass it, and can't manage to pass it. Then we have this statement, Kathy. Revenue by growth. Explain that. Brantford, where I live, Guilford, Madison, Milford, Stratford, Bridgeport, Fairfield County are all going to see massive property tax increases in the next couple of years because of the huge influx of New Yorkers that came here. So that will help the towns. Those towns are benefited by state spending on highways. So is there going to be revenue by growth? Yeah, there's going to be more spending by those people. The demand for those houses will stay high, hopefully stays high. That will help the town, but the town is immensely helped by the infrastructure, by the highways that lead those people here, by the trains that get people to work in New York City. So we can't walk away from state spending and just yell about, well, we get revenue by growth. Well, we're getting it. So we saw revenue growing on that local level, helped tremendously by the infrastructure at the state level. I have a call I have to answer, and I'm going to answer that in a few minutes because it's an elected official, but I'll get there in a second. We have to look at this differently. And both sides, the argument's false. Republicans keep talking about how is increases in property taxes good? Not an increase in property taxes, an increase in property tax revenue. If there's two ways to get new revenue from a property tax. You increase the mill rate, the rate of tax, or you increase the value, I don't want to give you the finger, you increase the value of the property. The property goes from $300,000 to $330,000. The revenue from that property goes up. I want to pay that. That means I have a better asset. We want that. That's a good thing. Towns can be more solvent. And when you have that happen, you have what happened in Brantford. One of the few towns where this happened, mill rate went down. The tax rate actually went down. Job creation does not happen by reducing taxes. It is the biggest falsehood there is. Reducing taxes does not create jobs. Demand creates jobs. demand creates jobs. When people have money to spend, they buy things. When they want to buy things, they need something to buy. It is a false statement that properties tax reductions creates jobs. Doesn't happen. It's just not math. I didn't realize it was 4:30 already. Holy cow. Apparently I can talk. This is the last one for the week. I just want to talk about this. I do want to talk about Scanlon's tax credit. We'll talk about that on Monday. Guys, thanks for a great week. It was a big week for all of us with the new president. A lot of changes, but we will kickbacks move companies. Well, there's some truth to that. How long until we feel the 1,400? So there's no, I can tell you this, Democrats, from what I've read and heard from one person in Washington today, there's no definitive plan on the table yet. There was discussion, what did I read in Politico, of just doing a bill with the spending for COVID and the 1,400. So that seems to be a priority. I know it's a priority from Biden because Biden promised it. When he went to Georgia for that election, he promised the $1,400. Promised $2,000, but the $600 had already been paid. So I'm thinking if anything passes, and something will pass soon, in the first version will be the $1,400. And I think most people got their $600 pretty quickly. So that said, guys, thanks for the conversation. Thank you for a great week. We have a new president. It'll be interesting going forward. We'll talk more about federal, but we do want to focus a little more on state. Next week, I'll do my best to get some representative, maybe Scanlon and maybe Cohen and Comey on, and talk to them about what's happening in Hartford and more about that tax credit. Guys, I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. I will see you all on Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great night.